Okay, wait. What if I told you that America's closest friend in the Middle East might not actually want America to win? Not in public, of course. In public, they smile, they shake hands, they stand next to each other and say all the usual stuff. Strong alliance, best friends, unbreakable bond. But behind closed doors? Behind closed doors, the game looks very different. Because sometimes in politics, your friend does not want you to become stronger. Sometimes your friend wants you tired, wants you distracted, wants you bleeding money, wants you stuck. And that is exactly what this video is about. Because today, we are going to talk about a wild idea. Yeah, sounds crazy. It sounds like one of those things people whisper online. But slow down. This is not about fantasy. This is about strategy. Cold strategy. The kind where countries smile at each other in public while secretly planning for a totally different ending. And once you see the game this way, the news starts looking very different. So let's make this super simple. No confusing words, no boring lecture, just the real idea, explained like we're talking to a smart 10-year-old. Ready? Let's go. Most people think the Middle East story is easy. America and Israel are on one side. Iran is on the other side. Saudi Arabia is somewhere in the middle. That's how the news usually makes it sound, like a superhero movie. Good team, bad team. Fight starts, good team wins. The end. But real life is not like that. Real life is messier, way messier. Because countries are not best friends the way normal people are best friends. Countries don't have feelings. Countries have interests, and interests change. That means two countries can smile together, trade together, even fight together, and still secretly want different things. That's the key idea. So instead of thinking of this like a simple war between two teams, think of it like a giant game, a four-player game, a very tense game, a game where everyone wants to win, and even the people standing on the same side of the field are secretly trying to outplay each other. The four big players are America, Iran, Israel, Saudi Arabia. Four players, four plans, four goals, and almost none of those goals fully match. That's where the real story begins. Let's forget maps for a second. Forget politics too. Imagine a big schoolyard. And in that schoolyard, there is one very special thing. A magical candy machine. Not a normal candy machine. This one is the only candy machine in the whole school. And whoever controls it, controls everything. They decide who gets candy, they decide who pays, they decide who has power. That candy machine is oil, Middle Eastern oil, the thing that helps power cars, factories, ships, planes, and entire economies. Now imagine four big kids standing around that machine. Each kid wants control, each kid has a plan, and none of them trust each other. America is the biggest kid, the strongest kid, the one who has been running the schoolyard for a long time. America has had a big hand on the candy machine for decades, and America's basic attitude is simple. I'm the boss. I want to stay the boss. Iran is the kid who feels pushed around, bullied, punished, cornered. This kid has been getting hit, blocked, and isolated for years. But instead of giving up, this kid has been getting tougher, angrier too. And now this kid wants payback. Israel is not the biggest kid, but Israel might be the smartest kid. This is the kid who studies the game, the kid who knows how to whisper, how to plan, how to get bigger kids to fight each other. Israel walks around like America's best friend. And maybe in some ways it is, but Israel also has its own plan, a big plan. And that plan is not always the same as America's plan. Saudi Arabia is the rich kid, very rich. This kid may not punch the hardest, but this kid can buy influence, make deals, wait patiently, and step in when others are weak. So now you have the full picture. Four big kids, one candy machine, zero trust. And now the real question is, what does each one actually want? Not what they say, what they really want. Let's start with America. America wants one main thing, Iran gone, or at least weakened so badly that it stops being a problem. That is the simple version. But why? Why does America care so much? Why is Iran such a huge deal? There are two big reasons. Imagine there is a bridge, a very small bridge. But this bridge is incredibly important because every truck carrying food, water, supplies, and candy has to cross it. If you control that bridge, you control what moves. You can charge money, you can block people, you can threaten everybody. That bridge, in the real world, is called the Strait of Hormuz. It's a narrow water path near Iran, and a huge amount of the world's oil passes through it. That means if something goes wrong there, energy prices can jump, markets can panic, countries can get scared. And because Iran sits right next to that narrow path, Iran has huge leverage. It's like sitting right beside the school gate and deciding who gets in. That makes Iran very important, and for America, very dangerous. Because America likes a world where trade flows in ways America can protect, manage, and influence. If Iran can threaten that path, then Iran can threaten one of the most important energy routes on Earth. That's not a small problem. That's a giant one. Now let's zoom out. America is powerful for many reasons, but one huge reason is this. America has long been very strong at controlling the seas, ships, navies, ocean trade routes. That matters because a lot of world trade moves across water. So if you are the strongest sea power, you can shape a lot of global trade. But what happens if countries stop depending so much on sea routes? What happens if they start trading more by land? Through roads, rail lines, pipelines, connected land routes across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. That becomes a problem for America, because America is not sitting in the middle of that giant land area. America is across the ocean, so if major powers across Eurasia become deeply connected by land, America's power becomes less direct. And this is where Iran matters again. Iran sits in a very important location. Iran helps connect big regions. Iran can help connect Russia, China, Central Asia, and the Middle East. So from America's view, Iran is not just a country it dislikes. Iran is a puzzle piece, a key connector. And if that connector stays strong, America worries that rival powers can build a system that works more without America. That is why America sees Iran as such a major threat, not just because of speeches, not just because of anger, but because of geography, because of position, because of the map. So if you boil it down, America wants this. Keep oil routes safe and under friendly control. Stop rivals from building too much power together. Remove Iran as a dangerous connector and challenger. Stay the top player. That's America's basic goal. Now let's flip the board. What does Iran want? Iran also has a simple dream. Iran wants to stop being pushed around. Iran wants to become the big power in its neighborhood. And to do that, Iran wants three things. Remember that narrow water path, the Strait of Hormuz? Iran knows how valuable that place is. If you sit next to one of the world's biggest oil choke points, you have power. A lot of power. You may not even need to fully own it in some cartoon way. Just being able to threaten it gives you influence. It makes others think twice. It makes others nervous. It makes others take you seriously. Iran wants that advantage, because whoever influences that route can shake the whole region. America has military bases and military reach across the Middle East. To Iran, that is like having a giant enemy clubhouse right next door. Planes, soldiers, weapons, command centers. Iran hates that, because as long as America's military stays deeply rooted in the region, Iran never feels safe. So Iran wants America less present, less powerful, less able to strike, less able to shape the neighborhood. Iran wants America pushed back, maybe not overnight, but step by step. Now this part matters. Iran may hate Israel, but that does not mean Iran can just destroy Israel and walk away. That's not realistic. Why? Because when two powerful states are involved, especially with serious military strength, the danger gets very high very fast. So a more realistic goal for Iran is not always total destruction. A lot of the time the goal is to weaken, embarrass, pressure, and expose weakness, to show the region that Israel is not untouchable, to damage Israel's image, to make people believe Israel can be hurt. That matters because reputation is power. If people stop fearing you, your power changes. If people stop seeing you as unbeatable, your position changes. So Iran's dream is something like this: become harder to bully. Push America back. Raise its own status. Hurt Israel's image. Become a central power in the region. That is Iran's game. Now comes the twist, the part that flips the whole board over. What does Israel want? This is where the story gets wild. Israel does not only care about beating Iran, Israel also cares about what the whole region looks like after the fight. That's the key. Not just who wins this week, but who stands strongest when the dust settles. And from that point of view, Israel's ideal ending is not always the same as America's ideal ending. America might want a clean, fast, controlled victory. Hit hard, stabilize things, stay strong, keep influence. But Israel may see a different path as more useful. Why? Because a strong America that wins quickly is still a giant power in the region. A giant power with bases. A giant power with leverage. A giant power that remains the senior partner. And if America stays deeply strong and deeply involved, then Israel still has to share space with a much bigger player. But what if America gets trapped instead? What if America enters a long war? A draining war. A war that eats money. A war that hurts public support. A war that causes anger at home. A war that makes Americans ask, why are we still here? That kind of war changes everything, because long wars wear down empires, not just armies, empires. You've seen versions of this before. A country goes in feeling confident, fast mission, quick success, flags waving, big speeches, then months pass, then years pass, then more money is spent, more lives are lost, more public frustration grows, and slowly the country gets weaker, tired, distracted, divided. That is what a long war does. And if America becomes exhausted enough, something important happens. America may pull back, maybe not from the whole world, but from that region in the same way. Less energy, less appetite, less patience, less desire to stay deeply involved. And if America pulls back while Iran is also badly damaged, who benefits? Israel. That is the dark logic. Israel can benefit if Iran gets hurt badly, America gets worn down badly, other regional players also weaken, because then Israel may emerge as one of the strongest surviving players in the neighborhood. That is why some people argue Israel does not always benefit from a quick American win. A quick win can leave America strong, proud, and firmly planted. A long war can leave America tired and less committed. And for a smaller but highly strategic state, that can open space, a lot of space. This is the key idea of the whole video. Israel may benefit more from America getting stuck than from America winning cleanly. Not because Israel wants America destroyed, not because the friendship is fake in every way, but because strategy is cruel, and countries think about outcomes. If a long war weakens multiple rivals at once, that may serve Israel's larger regional goals better than a short, neat victory. That's the hidden logic. And once you see it, a lot of things start making more sense. But wait, there's one more player. Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia's role is very important too. Saudi Arabia is often quieter in stories like this. But quiet does not mean unimportant. Saudi Arabia has its own goals. Saudi Arabia does not want Iran to dominate the region. Saudi Arabia does not want to live under Iran's shadow. Saudi Arabia also does not want to be forever treated like a sidekick. It wants room, influence, leadership, respect. Saudi Arabia is like the rich kid who does not want to get punched if possible. This kid would rather make deals, spend money, build networks, wait for the right moment. And that waiting matters, because Saudi Arabia can benefit when others weaken each other. If America and Iran burn energy fighting, Saudi Arabia watches. If Israel and Iran stay locked in conflict, Saudi Arabia watches. If America becomes less dominant over time, Saudi Arabia sees opportunity. That does not mean Saudi Arabia wants chaos without limits. Too much chaos is bad for business, bad for oil, bad for investment, bad for image. But Saudi Arabia can still benefit from a world where no single rival becomes too strong, especially Iran. And maybe also from a world where America has to listen more instead of commanding everything. So Saudi Arabia's game is not always loud. It is patient, careful, strategic. It often looks like this: let the others clash, then step forward when the balance changes. That is a powerful strategy too. Sometimes the player who shouts the least is still playing very hard. Now put it all together. America wants Iran weakened. Iran wants America pushed out. Israel may benefit from a long war that drains America. Saudi Arabia may also benefit when rivals weaken each other. So how does the trap happen? Usually not all at once, not with one giant movie scene. It happens step by step. A strike here, a retaliation there, a threat, a counter-threat, a proxy attack, a new deployment, a stronger warning, more troops, more pressure, and every step feels temporary. Every step feels manageable. Every step feels like we're still in control. That is how countries get pulled in, not with one giant leap, with lots of little steps. And once boots hit the ground in a serious, complicated region, things can get messy fast. Because ground conflicts are not simple. There are local groups, hidden fighters, different loyalties, old grudges, religious tensions, ethnic tensions, outside powers, supply problems, political problems, media pressure, public opinion. It becomes a giant knot, and the longer the knot stays tied, the more exhausting it gets. That is why long wars are so dangerous. They can turn strength into weakness. They can turn confidence into doubt. They can turn winning armies into tired empires. And that is exactly why some players may secretly prefer a long conflict over a short one. Because time itself becomes a weapon. Not bombs, not missiles. Time. Time drains money. Time drains morale. Time drains public support. Time drains belief. And once belief starts to crack, power begins to crack too. At this point, some people ask, okay, then why doesn't someone just use the biggest weapon and end it? Because that creates a much bigger disaster. Think of a school fight. If one kid pushes another kid, that's bad. If the other kid punches back, now it's a fight. But if one kid suddenly pulls out something far more extreme, everything changes. Now the whole school is involved. Teachers rush in, parents rush in, police may rush in. What was once a fight becomes a catastrophe. That's what happens with the most extreme weapons. Using them does not create neat endings. It creates chaos, global outrage, fear, escalation. And once escalation starts climbing too fast, it gets hard to control. That is why even very powerful countries often avoid the most extreme options. Because after a certain point, nobody can be sure where it ends. And that uncertainty scares everybody. So instead, countries often fight in slower ways. Pressure, strikes, proxy groups, economic warfare, long-term exhaustion, and yes, long wars. That is brutal too. But from the view of strategy, it can feel more controllable than total catastrophe. Another big question. Why can't Iran just be forced to give up? Because countries under pressure can adapt. For many years, Iran has lived under sanctions, isolation, and heavy pressure. That pressure did not simply make Iran collapse. It also made Iran harder in some ways. More suspicious, more determined, more used to pain. When a country has already spent years being punished, it may become less easy to scare. It learns how to survive under pressure. It learns workarounds. It builds habits of resistance. That does not make it invincible, but it does make it difficult. It's like trying to scare someone who has already lived through years of hardship. That person may not react the same way as someone comfortable, and that is one reason conflicts with Iran are so dangerous. They are not likely to be quick, not likely to be tidy, not likely to end in a simple mission accomplished moment. And that is exactly the type of war that can trap bigger powers. So what is the real lesson here? The real lesson is this. War is not just about who has more weapons. It is not just about who has more planes, or more bombs, or more soldiers. War is also about patience, belief, stories, morale, endurance. Who can last longer? Who can stay focused longer? Who can keep their people believing longer? Who can turn someone else's strength into a burden? That is strategy. And the smartest player is not always the loudest player. Sometimes the smartest player is the one who lets others wear themselves out, the one who watches, the one who waits, the one who benefits while others bleed. That is the coldest part of geopolitics. Countries do not think like friends. They think like players. And players ask one question: what ending helps me the most? Not, what looks nicest on TV? Not, what sounds good in speeches? But, what outcome leaves me strongest? And once you understand that, alliances start looking more complicated, because two countries can be close and still have very different dream endings. That is the hidden point. That is the whole twist. That is why the headline of this video matters. Because if Israel benefits more from an exhausted America than from a quickly victorious America, then what looks like teamwork on the surface may hide a very different strategy underneath. So next time you hear someone say, America and Israel want exactly the same thing, pause for a second. Maybe they overlap in some ways. Maybe they cooperate in many ways. But that does not automatically mean their long-term goals are identical. In geopolitics, allies are still players. Friends are still players. Partners are still players. And every player wants to win, even if that means someone standing next to them gets weaker first. That is the uncomfortable truth. The game is not about friendship. It is about outcomes. Who ends up strongest? Who ends up standing? Who ends up controlling the board when the fight is over? That is the real question. And honestly, that question matters a lot more than the smiling photo ops. So now I want to ask you, who do you think is really winning this game right now? America? Iran? Israel? Saudi Arabia? Or maybe nobody yet? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this video made you see the story differently, hit like and subscribe. Because in the next one, we can go even deeper into the bigger regional plan behind all of this. And trust me, that part gets even crazier.